Job was a good man. He lived in a time long ago. He was a hard worker and very successful. Most importantly, Job loved God very much. Job was considered blameless by God. He followed God's commands. He prayed and thanked God. He taught his family to do the same. Job was also blessed with wealth. He had many flocks of sheep and herds of camels. He had a large family and many servants. He was a respected leader in his community. Job's life seemed perfect. He had everything a person could ever want, but God had a plan for Job, a plan to test his faith in ways he could never imagine. One day Satan appeared before God in heaven. Satan challenged God, questioning Job's loyalty. Satan claimed that Job was only good because God had blessed him. God allowed Satan to test Job. God allowed Satan to take away Job's possessions, his family, and even his health. But God forbade Satan from taking Job's life. And so Job's world was turned upside down. He lost his animals, his servants, and tragically all of his children in a series of disasters. Job was left with nothing but the clothes on his back and unbearable grief. Job was devastated by his losses. He tore his clothes in mourning and shaved his head in grief. He sat among the ashes, overwhelmed by the sudden and terrible misfortunes. Job's body became covered in painful sores. He suffered greatly, both physically and emotionally. His friends came to comfort him, but their words offered little solace. They questioned his righteousness. They suggested he must have sinned to deserve such punishment. They urged him to confess his sins and seek God's forgiveness. Job, however, refused to blame God. He knew he had done nothing to deserve this suffering. He maintained his innocence. Job questioned God. He cried out in anguish, begging for answers. He wanted to understand why all this was happening to him. He questioned his own faith. Despite his pain and confusion, Job never cursed God. He never lost his faith, even when it seemed like all hope was gone. He clung to the belief that God was still good, even in the midst of his suffering. Job's friends urged him to give up on God. They insisted that God had abandoned him. They told him to accept his fate and move on. Job refused to listen. He knew in his heart that God was still with him. He believed that God had a purpose for his pain. Job remained faithful. Job's story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, God is with us. Job's unwavering faith is an inspiration to us all.